most people want to make big money in their lives. At least I haven't met anybody who would refuse a few millions if they were offered. Fortunately, a lot of people like to work for their money, but it's true that a lot of them are waiting for some miracle with lottery tickets. However, there are few people who would like to get rich with a quick bank robbery, and in some cases, they succeed. Hi, my name is Mark from ListHive, and today I brought you the 10 biggest bank robberies in the history of mankind. Everything is possible in love and war. But somebody has interpreted this as if it is totally acceptable to rob a bank in the middle of a war. In 1976, during the civil war in Lebanon, a few people realized that because of the constant battles, it wouldn't be so conspicuous if they robbed Beirut's British bank, which was deserted anyway. They brought bombs and locksmiths for the job just to make sure that they will get in everywhere. I guess they must have been pretty calm if they thought it wouldn't be noticeable if a few bombs exploded there. They managed to get their hands on about $50 million worth of money, gold and jewelry. It in itself is a nice amount, but if we look at it in 2019 value, they have managed to get away with about $150 million. They didn't have problems with the electricity bill in their lives for sure. The year is 1878, when Manhattan wasn't all about Spider-Man and it was the police that had to solve crimes. But not everything went according to the plans. This is because during the biggest bank robbery of the time, the Manhattan Savings Institution was stripped of some money, stocks and bonds worth about $2.5 million. In today's ratings, it's about $65 million. George Leslie had been planning the robbery for years, constantly perfecting it and setting up a few smaller bank robberies to get some experience before the big hit. Although the plan might have been perfect, George couldn't enjoy it for too long, because a few months later one of his mates killed him because George hit on his wife. The fact that they were the ones who robbed the bank only turned out after his death, so he didn't go to jail because of it. Let's come a little closer to today time-wise, exactly to 2004. Let's have a look at how the guys in Belfast work, since they have committed the perfect crime during robbing the Northern Bank. The police are just scratching their heads ever since. The robbers simply held two managers' families hostage, then told the bankers to go to work the next day like nothing happened. The poor guys had to pull it together for a whole day while their families were in danger. And of course, they couldn't show any sign of worrying or nervousness. At the end of the day, when the bank had already closed, the managers led the robbers into the bank where they could walk around freely in return of the safety of their families. They got away with roughly $41 million. After the robbery, they let the family members go unharmed and then they disappeared into thin air. If you think this plan cannot be topped, then I'll quickly let you in on a little secret. Something new can always be done. Especially because this has happened earlier than the last robbery. In 1992, bank robbers in Toulon held a security guard hostage besides one of the banker's family members. They even gave him a new belt. Only he wasn't so happy about it because it was full of explosives. All of this has helped them achieve their goal because everybody in the bank let them do their jobs. They freed the bank from about $30 million. Though they didn't have it so good like their colleagues in Belfast, because the police arrested a few of them and they even managed to track down and get back 10% of the money. I'm sure the other robbers who escaped with 90% of it cried a lot because of this. 2005 was the year of big bank robberies as well. This is when a team in Brazil hit the jackpot. I have to say, they worked very hard for it. They pretended to be a regular group of mechanics for weeks so that they could work in a building next to the bank without getting noticed. While some of them were working in the building keeping up their appearances, the others dig a tunnel where they also installed lights and air conditioning so that the whole work would be comfy. Finally, they managed to get under the bank so the drilling and the stealing could begin. They got away with about $70 million and the police never found them nor the money. The name Butch Cassidy might sound familiar, but if not, then all you need to know about him is that he was one of the, if not the biggest train and bank robbers of the 19th century's America. And why did I bring him up now? Because we are going to talk about his very first bank robbery. In 1889, Butch and two of his friends walked into one of the biggest banks of the San Miguel Valley in Colorado to get a few dollars out of them. They didn't overcomplicate things. He simply pointed a gun at one of the workers and demanded that they give him all of the bank's money. Obviously, at the time there wasn't a secret police calling button under the table, and I suppose the bankers weren't really armed well, so they obeyed without thinking. They took more than $20,000. If we add the inflation rate since 1889, then according to today's calculations it would be about $600,000. This wasn't the world's biggest amount of money taken in a bank robbery, but this has started Cassidy down his path where he deprived a lot of banks of their money along the way. There are still robbers who seriously plan the whole robbing. Past the 19th century, it's not enough to just walk into somewhere with a gun. In 2007, a team from Iraq managed to carry the robbery out without the danger of getting caught or any violence at all. What's more is that it was the world's easiest plan. The guys applied to be security guards in the bank, of course under fake names, and they got hired. From that moment on, their only job was to wait to get night shifts when no one else is around. When this happened, they got to work and instead of guarding the bank against robbers, they took the money themselves. Genius, isn't it? They freed the bank from about $280 million. They even hit a bonus punch in the face because when they walked away, they left the whole building open from the entrance to the safe's door. Not all bank robberies take place in a bank. You would think that while robbing a bank, it doesn't hurt to be in the building, but sometimes it's not exactly how it goes down. Like in this case, because the biggest English bank robbery took place on the streets while a courier transferred a few bonds from one bank building to another. At least he wanted to. Only a regular petty thief stopped him, pointed a knife against him and simply and nicely asked for his bag, in which there was 300 pieces of bonds, each worth like $1 million. It's not likely that our guy knew what he was getting himself into, but he got home with a pretty good price. Though he couldn't be happy for too long, because after a little while the police found him dead and they even managed to get a big part of the bonds back. In Hollywood, it's not too surprising if there's a big turn-up somewhere. You can just randomly meet one of your favorite celebrities anytime, so it's no wonder if people suddenly start running in the same direction while screaming. In 1997, they weren't running towards somebody, more like running away from something. That something was no other than the biggest and bloodiest bank robbery of the history of the United States. A few people busted into one of the banks fully armed and tried to rob it, only instead of simply walking out with the money, they got into a shootout with the police for hours. The robbers and the police have fired over 2,000 bullets, which led to the robbers' death, and numerous police officers and civilians got wounded. Actually, the whole thing had two positive results. For one, the bank robbery got handled, plus after the leaders of the local police have analyzed the whole incident, they provided the officers with much better equipment. So let's go back to Iraq, particularly to the end of Saddam Hussein's term in office. He kept a little something for the end too. Basically, he committed the biggest bank robbery of history with the help of his family. I can imagine as they are sitting at the table during dinner on Sunday and think about what they should do. Buy a KFC restaurant and start a fast food business? No, that doesn't bring enough money to the table. Oh, I know! Let's rob a bank! In March 2003, Saddam told his son to supervise as they emptied the safes of Iraq's central bank. It wasn't such a bad call because they managed to steal $1 billion worth of stuff. They put the money and other valuables in trucks that were constantly carrying them away. The authorities have managed to hunt down some of it, but they are most likely not getting back most of the heist. That's it for today. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to List Hive.